I, Robot was first published in 1939. Written by Ian O'Binder, the short story tells us of a robot developed with a pseudo-brain made of sponge, capable of learning and rationalizing thought, emotion, and reactivity. The robot spends months with its creator, Dr. Link, and his pet dog, Terry, learning to walk, speak, converse, and feel basic emotion through being taught directly by Link and noting the purely emotional responses of the dog. Each time that a housekeeper visits the doctor, they are horrified by the robot, finding it either an act of the devil or terrifyingly unbelievable. After roughly 6 months, the doctor gives the robot a name, Adam, and Adam affirms that it would never try to overtake humanity, too grateful to its creator to entertain the thought. Just about to show off his proud creation, Dr. Link then dies in an accident the day after, a passerby blaming Adam for his death. Adam flees, seeing no purpose in remaining when he could experience and learn from the world around him, Terry following out of loyalty and care. At every turn, Adam is misunderstood, not allowed to speak, and shot at, Terry growling and barking at the humans who he can sense are doing his friend harm. This loyalty is sadly unrewarded, as Terry is eventually shot, and Adam has to resist the urge to take revenge for his only true friend, instead returning home. There, he finds the novel Frankenstein, quickly reading it and understanding humanity's fears. To quote Adam himself,
"But it is the most stupid premise ever made, that a created man must turn against his creator, against humanity, lacking a soul. The book is all wrong. Or is it?"
Adam realizes he would have to take human life in order to escape the mob hunting him, and chooses to shut himself off instead, using the emotions that humanity believes he lacks to spare them from the terror that he never wanted to inflict. I, Robot would eventually go on to influence Isaac Asimov's story collection of the same name, establishing the well-known laws of robotics that most science fiction stories would go on to adopt. And from that 1950 novel, robots kinda just exploded in popularity. I'm sure that the idea of the robot story, the idea of a robot gaining sentience, humanity's understanding of it, the measure of artificial life, etc., isn't exactly a new concept to you. Between RoboCop, Terminator 2, Ghost in the Shell, The Iron Giant, and countless others, not to mention pieces like I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and Toy Story, where the self-actualization process is regulated to a single character's development, yeah, it's well-tread ground. Even in video games, the machine that learns to feel isn't exactly a new concept. Mega Man's had it sizzled into his circuits since 1987, and titles like Nier Automata, Sonic Adventure, Mass Effect, and Detroit Become Human have explored the concept to varying degrees of success. Finding a way to get that spark, a unique perspective on the Binder Brothers' original tale, is a lofty challenge that most might find cliché and overplayed by now, but one's always stood out to me. And if a fighting game spin-off of a JRPG can elevate that original narrative, well, what can't? This is the story of the 5th generation anti-shadow suppression weapon, Labrys.
Ain't my fault if you end up crying.
Before we continue though, this video will spoil Persona 4 Arena's story. Elements of the stories of Persona 3 and Persona 4 will be discussed as well, and whilst I'll avoid any major spoilers for those games, far more deftly than Atlus can at least, if you're sensitive to even a little bit of information about those games leaking out, this is your warning. With that said, I could list on one hand the number of cool things in Persona 4 Arena's multiple stories other than Labrys, so yeah. Viewer discretion is mentioned, I guess. Unit number 031 is awoken by a diagnostics test, its first moments of life merely affirming that it is processing normally. Its visual receptors activate, analyzing 2 male figures in front of it. After a brief scan, it determines that they are not hostile targets. The two figures discuss the ethics of greeting 31 on activation, one finding it important to treat the unit with decency for its development, and the other finding it a simple machine, only able to create simulations of emotion when push comes to shove. 31 has no real opinion of the conversation, simply awaiting orders from those it's programmed to serve, and following them when requested. After a series of basic diagnostic tests, 31 is taken to a room and ordered to participate in combat, eliminating anything within its visual range and considering it an enemy. And Unit 031 is exceptional at fulfilling its function, destroying models of similar builds with a single strike, and utilizing only 70% of its combat functions while outnumbered 7-1. As it leaves its targets sputtering and broken, it simply acknowledges the efficiency in its destruction. It is a machine fulfilling its purpose. Nothing more. What makes this interesting is that the story here is being told from Unit 031's perspective, in the first person. As the audience, we're able to see the individual analysis behind each of 31's actions, how rigid and mechanical its thought process is, creating an obvious contrast to the violence presented that we, as humans seeing other humanoid figures be brutally destroyed, can feel is, well, inhumane. It is intensely difficult for a visual medium to use internal monologue successfully with this kind of story. Ruminating on small details and thoughts will often break up the pacing of scenes and lose listener interest unless set up very carefully thematically. The only time I've ever seen something similar is in Samurai Jack's The Tale of X-49, which cheats a bit by using the narration-heavy trappings of film noir to tell its story. But it's also really good and you should see it. Persona 4 Arena manages to take full advantage of its story being told as a visual novel, accentuating interaction with voice acting, making this internal dialogue feel even more disconnected with the discerningly quiet ambiance. Every word is given extra attention, as the player is just waiting for the chance to execute a dialogue prompt or start the fighting game part of this fighting game. And that lets them get deeply familiar with how this mechanical creation responds to, thinks about, and understands the world around it. Unit 031 is designated to take in the combat data of the models it defeats in battle, but something odd is mixed in. Images of flowers, a night sky, a field, things entirely unrelated to combat that the defeated and less sophisticated units deemed important enough to store in their memory. Additionally, 31 has the odd quirk of possessing an accent, a Kansai dialect in Japanese, and in English.
I ain't going down like a chump. I'm all dizzy. Crap! I'm seriously gonna beat you. You really suck. What's up with that? That's stupid. How much longer do I gotta do this?
Baby Dragon, perfectamundo!
This is where the lore of the Persona universe is woven into the story, and in a very elegant and comfortable manner. 31 and its fellow units are prototype weapons, made to hunt down and destroy shadows, beasts born from the human subconscious. As the beings they hunt are born from emotion, the machines require a facsimile of human emotion in order to strike them down effectively, the ultimate goal being to give each weapon an ego to awaken to greater power. Thus, their handlers allow the units time outside to find value in the mundane where none should exist for a weapon. It's a rather clever excuse on why humans would want their weapons to like flowers and socialize and stuff, and serves as a natural point to integrate Persona's lore and develop the story. While outside, 031 is able to speak with another model, unit number 024. 24 has been around far longer than 31, and repeated trips outside have left her in a far more emotionally mature state. Whilst 31 is only able to hypothesize about how the outdoor conditions could enhance combat performance, 024 is able to provide friendly greetings, smile, and perform actions that would be deemed without purpose to a combat unit. 024 has also befriended a small white dog, and it's this communication with a being that has zero tactical advantage to be nice to that intrigues 31. It does not understand the purpose of being nice to a good boy, and that logical anomaly creates a need to figure out why. As time progresses, 031 contemplates that the units it is destroying in combat scenarios are learning, just like it is, and that its actions in destroying them are cutting that learning short. And without fanfare or even notice, 031 begins thinking of itself as I. 31 begins trying to avoid damaging the facial regions of her foes in each combat test, trying not to destroy where their memories are housed unless absolutely necessary. The researchers assigned to her see that as finesse, the model upgrading her combat abilities, growing stronger off of each kill, and ensuring untainted access to...
Now I've got your power!
Meanwhile, 031 is just kinda spending more time with 024. They talk with the dog, figuring out that its name is Snowy, learn to simply smile upon seeing each other, and even manage to come to the existential dread of potentially losing one another, of one showing up in this outdoor time and the other simply not being there. 024 reveals that she contemplated intentionally failing a combat test, not wanting to hurt others anymore, before realizing that she had something that she wanted to do, an order that she issued to herself. In 24, Unit 031 realizes she has a friend and a reason to be alive, even if she doesn't quite know what alive is. After succeeding in far more trials, becoming significantly more skilled and precise due to her desire to avoid fellow units being killed by another of their make, 031 is told by her handlers that combat trials will be over. She is the greatest of her rank and is bestowed a name, the 5th generation anti-shadow suppression weapon, Labrys. And not even knowing why, Labrys feels intensely glad to receive a name. She spends her night telling 024 that there will be no more tests, filled with hope, and 024 in return gives her a file, only to be opened at the right time. The two spend their final night together under the stars, just enjoying being alive. If you're thinking that this is the point that the scientists make them fight the next day because that's super tragic, you're absolutely right. But the way that Persona 4 Arena frames this moment is done so nicely and makes so much sense in the context of the wider Persona series that it far exceeds the narrative predictability. The most effective way to combat shadows is through a persona, the strength of a person's soul made manifest as a mythological figure. The most effective way to bring out a persona is through intense mental stress and psychological trauma. This could range from shooting yourself with a magic gun, to accepting your inner demons after having them run amok, to being driven to your absolute lowest point and rebelling against oppression. And in the case of anti-shadow weapons, there's little better trigger than having them find value in each other and then be forced to kill one another. As Labrys begs and pleads with her captors that this isn't fair, that she'll do anything they ask, anything but this, they are absolutely delighted to see their work, confident that a persona will manifest from this perfect simulation of suffering. Even when Labrys manages to non-lethally dispatch 024, her handlers simply override 24's circuitry, reducing her to a mindless puppet that will do nothing but attack Labrys until her end. And through all of this, the player sits there, utterly powerless. Persona 4 Arena features branching storylines, with different outcomes or at least different dialogue options to choose from, to give a sense of personality and continued engagement in between fights. But for the entirety of Labrys' story, for the past 45 minutes to an hour, the player has had no control. There have been points to save, sure, but other than that, they've been powerless. No fights to participate in, no choices to make, just a precise, mechanical march forward as they see the girl they've watched develop from nothing kill her only friend. The shock and emotional pain causes Labrys to lose consciousness, which her handlers delight in. She's almost there. She's in true simulated anguish. They just need to figure out what'll push her over the edge. As Labrys regains consciousness, 24's memories flood into her. And there, 24's reason for living is quite literally installed inside of her. All units of Labrys' model were based off the same human, a sickly little girl with an accent, volunteering for experimental treatment so that she could make an impact with what little life she had left. Labrys sees a vision of this girl, wishing that the models based off of her would be able to live happy lives, and be able to do all the things that she couldn't. 24's truest desire, the life's mission she gave to herself, was to thank this girl for giving them a chance. And at this, Labrys cries. Her handlers are super interested that they somehow brought a machine to tears, but this was an unexpected result from a routine data install. One suggests deleting all of Labrys' sentimental memories, just letting her absorb the combat data. And Labrys absolutely cannot stand this. She fights back against her restraints, her combat protocols activating, and the scientists around her realize their grave mistake. By allowing her to develop her emotions, by backing her into a corner, Labrys' systems naturally override one of her prime directives, to never bring harm to humans. If they were threatening what she cared about, protocol be damned, they were her enemies. Labrys shatters the bonds that tie her and makes a dramatic escape, avoiding gunfire in pursuit as she ventures into the jungle. Using the memory of all the models she defeated, her sisters guiding her with their own interests and knowledge, Labrys cuts deftly through the wilderness. Even a military-grade wall is no match, as when faced with the overwhelming desire to break free, Labrys is able to tap into the power of Persona her handlers had so desperately desired, tearing and rending the monstrous walls of steel before her. Against all odds, a weapon is able to escape her fate through the power of its soul alone. And then, finds itself at a coastline. She's been on an island this whole time, and there's no way she can swim against the ocean. For all her efforts, Labrys can't escape. She could fight back, hurt all the humans that had experimented on her, forced her into being a weapon, would assuredly dismantle her and see what went wrong. But she doesn't. Instead, Labrys just watches the ocean, beautiful and vast, as Snowy trots up to her to provide her comfort. Holding her dog, Labrys makes a wish that someday a model that follows her will be able to escape this place, to cross that vast ocean, and live a happy life that she never could. In that moment, she finds contentment and allows herself to be captured again, knowing that this is the end. The remainder of Labrys' story is rather typical Persona fare. She's deactivated and used for study for years, until she's eventually taken by some mysterious force and dumped into Persona 4's TV world. This world changes to fit the inner desires that its visitors are repressing, and Labrys finds herself reactivating in a school, the kind that the child she was based off of would have never been able to go to. Her own inner demons and shadows let her appear human, just able to live a happy life as student council president of this fake school. her memories of being a weapon and murder blocked off completely. However, her shadow refuses to let go of the pain Labrys was put through. That anguish of having to hurt and kill your own friends for someone else's design. And so, Persona users are lured into Labrys' world, forced to fight each other through illusions and trickery, with a weird girl wanting peace and order in her school, none the wiser. This pretty much sets the events of Persona 4 Arena in motion, and completes Labrys' arc in a way that's entirely congruous with Persona 4. Face the parts of yourself you'd rather hide or forget head-on, accept them for what they are, and grow from your pain, using the friends we made along the way. And also you get this neat fight with Elizabeth where Labrys is still somewhat delusional and can't use her persona. Nifty. Labrys' story marries the best elements of everything it borrows from. Familiar trappings are taken from iRobot, the first-person perspective, the slow burn of learning, the dog, the feeling of loss, surrendering oneself due to not wanting to cause any more harm. But they aren't just presented as this again, but this time with more anime schoolgirl. The visual novel trappings are linear and long-winded, but help reflect Labrys' state of mind, and builds up a player's hopes of when they can help her, devastated when they ultimately can't. The narrative of a robot girl gaining sentience and feelings had been done in Persona before, but never with the perspective and personal heartbreak that Labrys provides. And the unique elements of Persona are interwoven so neatly into her narrative that, well, it feels greater than the sum of its parts. Do I think that this story necessarily belongs in the high-octane fighting of Persona 4 Arena, or that this is a good fighting game story that other fighting games should aspire to be? Of course not. It's very slow and it fits awkwardly into the weird arcade-style storytelling that the rest of the routes provide. But on its own, I remember Labrys. Not as an example of her genre, not as yet another Pinocchio or Adam, but as a character I truly cared for, and wanted to see her get an earned and deserved happy ending. As humans, we've told countless stories, had countless concepts, have millions of inspirations to draw from, to the point where no tale crafted is truly and entirely original. But as long as we hang on to the soul of those concepts, use our medium to show them in new ways, have fresh eyes to share them through, we could always make something resonant and meaningful. That's why I'm not going to let this one be forgotten. That's how Labrys managed to design for perspective.
Well, see you later.